is a city in Southern California that has sprawling, white sandy coastlines, filled where visitors from all over come to experience. On these shores, you'll see mansion upon mansion up and down these coastal shores. But there are other parts of Oxnard that most citizens there are familiar with. Poverty-stricken neighborhoods that have resorted to violent crimes as a means of income. This is the side of Oxnard that is shuttered away and has become the norm. Many of those in Oxnard face homelessness or housing instability and insecurity. So, why is there such a wealth disparity in Oxnard? Why is Oxnard like this? First, we need to establish some baseline facts. There are around 200,000 people living in the city of less than 40 square miles. The median income of the average person in Oxnard is $27,500, while the median income of the average household in Oxnard is $77,000. Approximately 3/4 of the population is either Hispanic or Latino, with the other quarter of the population identifying as non-Hispanic or Latino. Of this population, approximately 1/3 was born in a country outside of the USA, compared to the national average of just 13.5%. This is about 2.5 times higher than the national average. But what does this have to do with housing insecurity? Well, approximately 21% of the immigrant population lives at or below poverty level. In the county that Oxnard is in, around 2/3 of the immigrants claim to speak either no English or very little English. Because of this, it only makes sense that most immigrants work doing jobs such as agriculture, where over 1/3 of these immigrants work. And so, it's not difficult to see why Oxnard sees its fair share of crime and housing struggle. In an average drive through Oxnard, it'll be filled with an awful lot of apartments and multi-family unit buildings. In fact, much more so than the average city. Housing per capita is defined by the number of houses divided by the number of people. Oxnard has about half of the housing per capita than the national average. This means around 7 people per home in Oxnard, compared to around 4 people per home in the average American home. So, in economic terms, less homes per person means the supply is down, but because the population is only going up, it means the demand is only steadily increasing. When the supply is down, but demand is up, that means prices go up, especially for a necessity like housing. And this is only great for one set of people, landlords and real estate investors. That means they continue to make more and more money, even if there aren't many improvements to housing. And tenants have no choice but to continue paying rising rent and mortgage prices or become homeless, especially in California, where there is a notorious lack of rent control laws. The average price of rent for an apartment, about 900 square feet, across the country is around $1,702. But in Oxnard, the average rent for almost the same exact square footage is $2,533. And this isn't because Oxnard, or at least the parts not along the shoreline, are any nicer. In fact, there are around 202 crimes per square mile, compared to the state average of 83 crimes per square mile. But why is this happening? Well, like I said before, it's because of limited housing supply, lack of rent control, but it's also because of a general lack of resources for tenant rights, as well as people not knowing their rights, along with major corruption and greed. So, let's talk about this corruption and greed. Take, for instance, one apartment complex / multifamily unit called Rancho Solana in Oxnard. On their website, Rancho Solana looks great. It looks like the perfect place to raise a family. But my mom told me not to trust everything I see on the internet. So Let's take a closer look, shall we? It didn't take much investigative work to uncover a more realistic picture of this apartment complex. And it looks like this isn't just an exaggeration of it's like on a bad day or some pictures from just one or two upset tenants. Let's take a look at some average reviews on Yelp. Yep, that's a lot. Okay, seriously, it's a lot of bad reviews. Are these all of them? Okay. Drum roll, please. Time for the final score. Out of 17 reviews, Rancho Solana lands a whopping 1.5 stars. A lot of these reviews seem to mention management issues with the property owners, and those property owners are a company called JRK. So, let's talk about them. JRK Property Holdings is a company that goes around buying up a bunch of these wonderful apartment complexes. The chairman slash CEO slash founder of JRK is this dude here, Jim Lippman. He must be pretty successful at what he does because his net worth is estimated to be between $25 to $50 million. He boasts his own estate in magazines to show for his success in life. In one interview he gave, he's quoted as saying, "We look for a minimum ROI, or return on investment, of 20% when it comes to putting additional dollars into a property. We don't go in and over-improve in hopes of a return on the dollar." And while owning and operating a company that holds $6 billion in real estate isn't a crime, especially in America, where many would praise such an entrepreneurial spirit, this company is far from operating within the law. In fact, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when there was a national rent moratorium, the first property management company to break this emergency law was yours truly, JRK. They had to dish out a whopping $300,000 in penalty fines to the tenants because of it. And this is only the beginning of it. If you Google JRK lawsuits, a ton of results come back saying that JRK is pretty notorious for getting into hot water by violating tenant rights. I spoke to a previous tenant of this property, and it turns out JRK might not be done with breaking the law when it comes to COVID, or at least it's running one hell of a scam. The tenant I spoke with, let's call her Carol, first told me about this potential scam a few months ago. Apparently, the property had encouraged her to apply for the California Rent Relief Grant because she lost her job due to COVID. Once she had applied and been approved, she was able to move out of her apartment and out of state, probably due to the living conditions mentioned earlier. A few months later, she had realized that after she was approved for the entire back rent and utilities that she owed, and after her old landlord had been paid by the state of California, JRK had apparently falsely filed to a collection agency the entire amount of rent. Thinking this was an error, she tried for months to contact the old landlords via email or phone call and was simply ignored. It's now been over 2 years since this incident occurred, and she can't get a hold of anyone. She says she's never even got her deposit back, despite leaving her apartment in perfect conditions, which she said was just under $3,000. She now has no choice but to take the company to small claims court. Luckily for Carol, she was able to spot this discrepancy and knows her rights as a tenant. But now she has to take time out of her job and her schooling to take this to court because she doesn't have enough money to hire a lawyer. And this isn't just Carol's problem. Hundreds of reviews, just like the ones found on Yelp for JRK Residential, talk about similar stories. A corrupt property management company that takes advantage of working class people by running scams, taking money, raising rent despite appalling conditions, and taking the chance of going to court over it. So, while Jim Lippman sits in his marble castle, the average person, like the citizens of Oxnard, are being bled dry of their hard-earned money and risking potential homelessness because of it. So, what can you and I do about it? The first step is to raise awareness of this company. Share this video with your friends and family to let them know about corrupt companies like JRK. Like, comment, and repost this to your social media pages. The second step is to research very, very carefully about who your landlord is before you sign a lease with them. Not just the property itself, but the company too. The third step is to be aware of your rights as a tenant. Look up your local tenant laws in your state and your county. Make sure you follow all the legal steps you're supposed to and hold your landlord accountable. The fourth step is to advocate for any laws in your local area that will affect you. Be careful, because there is some tricky language that can be used, and there's some powerful advertising to trick you into voting against your own self-interest.